Okay, good evening, everybody. I wish to thank, first of all, Luigi for inviting me to this summer school. It's a pity that we are very, very busy. Luigi knows that it's difficult even to get in touch by phone sometimes because we have always meeting lessons and selection, etc. So in any case, it's a pleasure for me to be here. And it is always a pleasure for me to discuss about waste management, and in particular in the framework of a smart city. And I would like to share a file. Do you see it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So. Now? Okay.
We see the presentation
the first one.
In view of relator.
Modalità relatore.
Sì, va bene, no? Va bene così.
No, in realtà mettila, non si vedono i sottotitoli, metti le modalità.
Dove si fa questa cosa? Che questo è, non lo uso mai io Zoom. Dov'è questa modalità?
Il PowerPoint il problema.
Aspetta, devo andare in PowerPoint, poi dove devo andare?
Su presentazione, in alto, tra revisione e animazioni.
Nel menu.
Nel menu. C'è il titolo del PowerPoint. Bisogna andare su animazioni, c'è su presentazione.
Lo vedi a metà tra i vari menu, vai verso destra.
È pieno di, c'è una sovrapposizione di, ecco qui, presentazione.
Sì.
Sì. Poi?
Ok, bisogna disattivare visualizzazione relatore sotto monitor.
Sulla destra, vai giù, destra.
In basso a destra.
Ah, ecco qua.
Sì. Bisogna disattivare la spunta su visualizzazione relatore.
La voce sotto. No, questo è il monitor, la voce sotto.
Ah, questo.
Ecco,
sì.
poi la spunta.
Sì.
Vai.
Ok, ora può andare.
E manda la presentazione, si è a posto.
So now should be okay.
Ok.
Do you see it? Because I cannot see the presentation.
No, non va non presenta, perché?
In alto bisogna...
Se riprendi presentazione, forse. Rivai su presentazione.
Anche su in alto, dove c'è il floppy disk.
Lì. Dall'inizio.
Dall'inizio?
Sì.
Do you see?
Io vedo una tendina con scritto riprendi presentazione in alto.
E ha due schermi?
Sì,
due schermi?
Sì.
Ah, allora prova a riandare in presentazione. Prova a ritornare in presentazione. Ok. Vediamo. Visualizzazione automatico. Guarda, c'è schermo automatico. Prova a dargli solo uno schermo, magari. Non so. Vedi un po'?
No, è bloccato.
Ah, è bloccato.
Come posso toglierla dal secondo schermo? Scusa.
Se no può condividere direttamente il secondo schermo da Zoom in condivisione schermo.
Se condivide il secondo schermo fa come prima e è a posto.
Ah, ok.
Esci dalla condivisione, rifai condividi e scegli...
Che incubo, ragazzi.
Prima devo mettere...
È diverso, come si è? Adesso non riesco più a trovare la finestra di Zoom. Controlli riunione, no, non me lo dà. Zoom.
Senti, gliela tolgo io la condivisione così la può riattivare.
Il problema è che non riesco poi. Ah, ecco, adesso ci sono. Rifaccio condividere lo schermo.
Sì.
E scegli la finestra.
E scelgo questo. Dovreste vederlo adesso. Lo vedete?
Sì, perfetto.
Oh, ok, so nice. Thank you very much.
Adesso non voglio aggiungere, non ci sono i sottotitoli, però fregatene. Vai.
Non ci sono? Ecco, ma come li devo... Posso farlo? No.
Fregatene, vai.
Okay, so in any case, I'm available to translate online if necessary. So this is the title that we agreed with Luigi. So the final focus is the possibility to recover energy from waste, from municipal solid waste in particular. But I decided to frame this main topic into a general discussion on waste management and a smart city. Okay. I have to say that historically, the relationship between waste management and the cities, the villages, is very difficult, as you may understand. And the typical approach, I put this picture on the left to joke, because you can see the distance between the vehicle and the waste container. And I also put this picture about this quarry, far from the village, far from the city, because the typical approach of the city towards waste management is usually far from ice, far from earth. Okay, so we don't want to deal with waste. We want to collect the waste as fast as possible and bring them away, possibly in a very far place. Possibly this place has to be closer to the border of the territory of the other village than to the heart of the territory of our village. So this is typical. A typical example in Sardinia is the big landfill in Sardiana. The landfill is closer to Donori than to Sardiana. So this is a typical choice. We don't want to deal with waste. I have to say also that historically, and in particular, the historic cities in Europe are not suitable for waste management. This is an historical trend. The only historical period when the cities were somehow designed and managed in order also to take into account waste production and management was during the Roman Empire. And you may know that even when the Roman built up the camp for the army, every night, every evening, they put the camp on a slope in order to make easier to drain the liquid waste, and they always built a small landfill close to the camp in order to have a waste management which was somehow organized. And in the ancient Rome, there was also a specific collection service for the waste, which was different in the poor part of Rome and the rich part of Rome. In particular, in the poor parts of Rome, they use a vehicle with horses. In the vehicle there was a fire, and the people went out from the home and threw the waste into the fire. So it was a kind of mobile incinerator going through the poor parts of Rome. And of course, the pollution was heavy because all the smoke was going to the streets and into the houses of the people. And the rich part of Rome, it was forbidden to use the fire, and there was a collection service, and then the waste was not burned during the transport, but directly landfilled. So some people say that some of the hills of Rome are indeed built on waste. Okay, so but this was the only period when somehow waste collection was considered in the planning of the cities and villages. Then from the Middle Age to the modern age, this problem was not considered. When we in the modern age we started again to be sensitive to the problem, to need to collect the waste, the results are similar to, in some case, are similar to the picture that you can see in the slide. So historic cities, very narrow roads, so very difficult to put the containers, very difficult for the vehicles to go through and collect the waste. We also apply some solution which was very poorly thought. This is an example. I don't know if you ever saw this type of waste management in our building. I can say that for the people who know Cagliari, you can find this system in the buildings which were built in the middle 70s, for instance, Via Copernico, Via Bandello, and it was a kind of chimney which was passing through the building, and it was available at each level of the building, and the people, instead of going to the street and bring the waste, was allowed to throw the waste directly into this chimney, and the waste was falling into a room, specifically dedicated room at the basement of the building. And this system was imported from the United States, and without considering that the quality of the waste that we produced at that time in Italy was completely different from the waste which was produced by the American people, because in the United States they have not a lot of food waste into the municipal solid waste, so that the waste that they produce historically is very light, very dry. So this system can be used, but you can imagine in the 70s in Cagliari, all the food waste which was in the mixed waste. I mean, all the effects of throwing to the basement of the building bags of waste, very heavy and filled also with food waste. So a lot of problems with rats, bugs, animals, etc. So this system was quickly dispatched and was not used anymore. But you can still see it in the streets that I mentioned this and this is a typical example of a planning which is not smart at all in terms of knowledge, because the worst thing that we can do is to adopt strategies and approaches from other countries or other contexts where the quality of the waste is completely different. And I have to say that until the early 90s, in the Italian regions, in the Italian municipalities, nobody took care about the waste quality. So we decided what to do with the waste without knowing the quality of the waste which was produced in our cities. Okay. This is a picture which summarizes the current approach to waste management according to the European Union directives. So the what we call the waste integrated management system is based on a hierarchy. So we should apply all the actions and strategies that you can see listed in this picture from the top to the bottom. So this means that the first thing that we should apply is avoiding to produce waste, and minimize the amount of waste which is produced. If possible, reuse the items that could become a waste. If we cannot reuse, we should give them as waste, and then the system should be able to recycle the waste. And if we cannot recycle materials, we should use them, if possible, as fuel, residual fuel. And if we cannot prevent, minimize, reuse, recycle, or recovery energy, then the very last and least option is the disposal. So to put the waste into the landfill. So all the system now is or should be organized according to this hierarchy. And you may understand that the most important phases are prevention and minimization, but they are also the most difficult to apply. So it's very difficult to avoid to produce waste because we live in a society and we adopt lifestyles which push us to consume, to buy, to use, and to waste. So this is typical. We use a lot of packaging material. We buy more than we can use. Even we buy more food that we can eat, and this is a big problem. Okay. And since the middle 90s, we apply the system. So this means that in Italy, we moved from a waste management system which was based basically on disposal, on landfills, to a system where it was asked to try to recycle as much as possible, to reuse as much as possible, and this in turn led to the application of the separate collection. Therefore, the separate collection is mandatory. We cannot think to recycle the different waste fractions if we do not collect through separate collection. In the again, during the 70s, we tried to recover resources from the mixed waste by building very complex plants which theoretically were able to separate through different physical and chemical systems the different materials which may be found in the municipal solid waste, but indeed this was a big failure because the efficiency of separation and the quality of the materials which can be separated from mixed waste are very poor, because if we put all the different materials together, the obvious effect is cross-contamination. In particular, the most contaminating fraction is the food waste, which is able to make dirty all the other fractions, to make difficult to separate all the other fractions. And so finally, in the 90s, at the end of the 90s, we understood that we cannot apply this strategy. In particular, we cannot recycle the waste if we do not apply separate collection. So separate collection became a must in our cities to be applied in different ways, and even the implementation of separate collection occur according to different steps. And we are living these different steps in Cagliari, for instance, in the last years. Because here you can see the first and typical approach to separate collection, which was to use street containers. So we observe an increase of the number of containers in our streets with all the problems and less room for parking, people using the area close to the containers as a landfill, because sometimes the people even does not use the containers, and different collection route for the different materials. So, I mean, if you are very, if your time in moving through the town is not the best, you can be stopped by the vehicle which is collecting the waste. And again, we try to in our cities to find smart solution to these problems. And this is, for instance, a typical example that you can observe in some of the main cities in the center of Italy. I'm talking about, for instance, Ravenna, Ferrara, Emilia-Romagna, Lombardia, some city in the Veneto region. So we try to make the street container less impacting, less ugly, and even a little bit smart, because some of these underground street containers were provided with readers of electronic badge, so the people was able to open them using the badge which was provided to each family. We also study more complex systems, and I don't know if you ever heard about this system. This was an attempt to implement the pneumatic waste collection system. So again, in each building should be available a kind of chimney with an opening at each level of the building, and the people should be able to throw the fraction to be collected, and then this fraction should be conveyed to centralized storage systems.
Bello questo.
Ti piace?
Sì, ma l'hanno implementato già da qualche parte?
And this was implemented in some parts of Barcelona, for instance.
Ah, ok. Bello.
But Luigi, again, this was a failure. Because again, it was, I mean, all the pipes were clogged, because it depends on the type of waste that you put inside. Okay, so if you use this with paper and plastic, you can use it, because these are light fraction, the density is very low, and they can be transported by the air.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about food waste, it's impossible. Food waste is very heavy, and also it make dirty the walls of the pipes, so it's very difficult to apply this system with mixed waste, and of course with glass, which is heavy, etc. So they use it, but it was I think they are not using anymore, even where they implemented it. But again, it was a kind to find an agreement between the cities, our lifestyle, and the need for collecting the waste. Okay, it was a kind of smart approach to waste collection. And we produce and we study, you can still find to be available on the market some kind of smart containers. And this, for instance, is a type of container that you can find in some city in Asia, Singapore, for instance. It is a smart container which use the solar power to operate a small compactor, so that the waste is compacted into the street container in order to reduce the collection frequency. So that the aim of this smart container is to reduce the collection frequency, and so to reduce all the impacts which are related to the collection routes, okay, in particular in big cities with a lot of traffic at every hour of the day, okay. And I mean, I said before that our cities were not thought to deal with waste collection, but I have to say, and I tell you, which are much more expert than me about building design, that also our flats are not suited for separate collection, because I see that the trend is to build flats which are smaller and smaller, and these are the containers which the municipality of Cagliari gave to us 2 years ago. They are very big, and I mean, my flat is not big, but I know that there are flats which are even smaller, and I wonder where the people put these big containers in very small flats. And you know that the choice of the municipality to use big containers, it was a technical, economical choice in order to, again, to reduce collection frequency. Okay, this is the reason why we have, they gave us big container for plastic, residual waste, paper, and glass, because these are dry fractions, so they should not produce bad smells. And so we are we are supposed to be able to keep the waste even for 2 weeks. Okay, so the trend is, when possible, to reduce the collection frequency in order to reduce the costs which are related to separate collection. Of course, the container, the family container for the food waste is smaller, because we cannot keep the food waste for days, for weeks in our flats. And I have to say that also for the residual waste, it's not easy to keep the residual waste for 1 week or 2 weeks. In particular, if you think that we put into the residual waste the diapers. Okay, so we use a lot of diapers for the babies, old people, the women, and there is not a collection service for diapers. So we put it to the residual waste. And if you have a small baby, you can imagine how many diapers you are going to use every day. And you easily realize that you cannot keep the residual waste at home for more than a few days. But in any case, there is also this problem. So we need also smart flats where we can be able to do a good separate collection. And so you can find on the market a lot of solution, which, I mean, very similar to the solutions that we applied to solve the problem given by the number of shoes, okay, in particular the shoes of the ladies, okay, that they have a lot of shoes. And something similar was put on the market to make separate collection a little bit easier to be applied. So again, smart solution for the problems which are originated by the need for separate collection. And other smart solutions are necessary for in order to understand separate collection. So I don't know, in every city, in every village, the municipality gives this kind of guidelines, and these guidelines are more or less easy to understand and to apply. And in particular, we have to think about the old people. Every day I have I do a phone call with my mother to decide with her, she's very old now, and to decide with her which fraction of waste has to be delivered on the street. And you know that many companies developed smart apps to help the people to manage the separate collection with some kind of messages every day to remember that you have to deliver the paper or the plastics or whatever. But you can understand that the problem of the old people is not solved by these apps, because these people, the old people is not going to, they are not very smart using the phone. And this is a problem because you know that the number of old people in our cities is growing every year. And there are a lot of parts of Cagliari. I was discussing with the Cagliari municipality, but there are whole parts of Cagliari where there is mostly very old people. And during the application of modern approaches to waste management, we have every year, every day, new requirements, new needs to be met. And in particular, I don't know if you realize that in Cagliari, very soon we will move from a waste management fee, which is based mainly on the size of our house and on the number of people living in the house, to a true fee. True fee means that we're going to pay, I think, from the next year according to the amount of waste that we actually produce. So this is a new need, which is not easy to apply, because we should be able to measure how much waste we produce. Okay, and so again, this required that we implement smart solutions. And for instance, I think that we will start paying on the basis on the amount of residual waste that we are going to produce. And since it is technically impossible, I remember that we discussed with Luigi when we try, do you remember, Luigi, for the proposal for Forni, for the municipality of Forni?
Absolutely, I remember.
Yeah. If you remember, they asked a system for measuring the amount of waste to be produced, and technically it is very difficult to we should pay according to the mass of waste that we produce, but to measure the mass of the waste is very difficult. And then actually we pay on the basis of the number of times we put on the street the container. So the municipality suppose that if you put the container on the street, the container is completely filled up, and they will take into account the corresponding amount of waste. Okay. So there are different systems which are under development in order to quickly read the code which is associated to the family in order to calculate the fee for waste management. Here you can see different examples of application. And in these days, I'm dealing with another smart problem to be solved. because this concept of pay consisting of paying a fee which is proportional to the amount of waste to be produced has to be applied also to special users like the universities. And if you saw the way we collect the waste and we do separate collection, so we have small eco centers inside the faculties, and we do not put the container on the street. So we cannot decide when and if put the container on the street. So the collection of our waste is performed always, even if the container are not filled up. And so I'm trying to, I would like to implement in our container at the different faculties a kind of system which is able to read the level of the waste into the container, and then through the Wi-Fi to send the message to the collection company that container is ready to be collected. Okay, in order to reduce the number of times that the vehicles are coming to our faculties to collect the waste. Okay, so this is another example of how we should make waste management smart in our cities. Okay, so coming to the main topic. The main topic is the possibility of recovering energy. And I have to say that the first application of energy recovery from municipal solid waste, and an energy recovery which was related to the possibility of using this energy directly into the city which produced the waste, was related to the disposal of waste into the landfills. And please take into consideration that from Rome southward, or from Florence southward, still in Italy, a lot of waste is going to the landfill. Okay, but in the past the landfill was everywhere. Veneto, Lombardia, Emilia-Romagna was the main system for waste collection. And in the until the 90s, we put into the landfill mixed waste, and this mixed waste contained also food waste. And when we put the food waste into the landfill, the waste is degraded by specific bacteria that do not use oxygen. They are known as anaerobic bacteria, and the anaerobic bacteria, when they degrade the waste, they produce what we call biogas. Biogas is a mixture of methane and CO2. A good biogas may have about 60% of methane, and this mixture of biogas, of methane and CO2, has a good heating value and can be used as fuel. So in the early 90s, I just got my degree, and I was working with my professor, who was one of the main international experts in sanitary landfills. And I remember that I helped him to design a lot of systems for the collection of biogas from the landfills, for delivering the biogas to gas engines, and these gas engines produced electricity to be used in the nearest town. And also, since we need to cool down the engines, the heat was recovered to produce steam. And one of the Best examples is this one in Imola, Emilia Romagna. I think it is still, I designed this in 93 maybe. And at that time was one of the biggest landfills in Italy, because it was accepting also the waste which was produced by Bologna, not only by Imola, Faenza, and smaller cities of that area, but it was receiving the waste from big cities like Bologna. And a lot, the waste was a mixed one, so with food waste, and there was a strong degradation activity, and a lot of biogas was produced. And we designed a system for collecting this biogas for to be fed to gas engine, and the electricity and the heat which was produced in this way was used to give electric energy and to give heat to the main hospital in Imola. Okay, so this was a very, at that time, this was a very smart example of a good relationship between the landfill and the territory which was producing the waste to be landfill. Okay, because we were able to provide all the energy and all the heat which was necessary at the main hospital in Imola. And after the 90s, at the beginning of the new century, the European Union enforced new directives, and these new directives say that this is not possible anymore. So it is, we should avoid as much as possible to put biodegradable waste into the landfill, and therefore the new landfills are not going to host any degradation activity. So we have not any more significant biogas production, and doesn't make sense to recover this biogas to produce energy. And this European Union directives say that the only way to get energy from municipal solid waste was to apply the combustion of the residual waste. Okay, so we are supposed the food waste is going to biological treatments. I'll be back later on this. And the residual waste should be managed through incinerators. And the incinerators are widely applied in Europe, in particular in the northern countries, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Austria. They use a lot the incinerators, and the concept is very easy. We burn the waste, and the combustion gas go to a boiler. Into the boiler we produce hot steam, and the hot steam is given to a turbine to produce electric energy. And if we want, we can also spill out some steam if we need the steam instead of electric energy. For instance, in the northern countries in Europe, they use also the steam to heat the houses close to the incinerators. In Italy, we do not need so much to recover heat, and we prefer to use the steam in the turbine to produce electric energy. I have to say that we call this plant waste to energy plants, but I must agree with the green movements which say that these plants indeed are not able to recover a lot of energy, because due to technical problems it's not possible to recover more than 20-25% of the energy content of the waste. And this is because the gas produced by the combustion of the waste are rich in compounds which are able to corrode the boiler. Okay, so there is a strong corrosion of the metallic part of the boiler. And in order to avoid this strong corrosion, we cannot cool in effective way the gas. And so we are not able to recover all the energy content of the hot gas coming from waste combustion. Okay, so this is a typical system. This is the main system for energy recovery that still we use in Europe. But it is characterized by technical limits, and also it is characterized by the production of very dangerous pollutants like dioxin, for instance, and therefore these waste to energy plants have to be provided by very expensive and effective systems to control the emission of these pollutants into the atmosphere. And all these considerations led to the fact that, to be honest, in Italy now it's impossible to build a new incinerator. I'm sure that you have the opportunity to read and see that the people against a new incinerator, they do not want any incinerator because they think it is very dangerous, and the extent of the energy recovery is not such to justify the construction of new incinerators, even if in the south of Italy we should need them, because the south of Italy still they are putting most of the waste into the landfills, and this is completely against every European directive, and we pay penalties because we put the waste into the landfills still in a significant part of the national territory. But if you look at these pictures, I don't know if you ever saw this plant. This is a very famous incinerator which is built in the very heart of Vienna. Okay, so this is in the center of Vienna, and it was designed in order to avoid to be ugly. So it's a nice building. Now it is one of the main location of Vienna, very famous. You can see it from many parts of Vienna, and it is precisely in the middle of the city. So why I'm showing this picture? I'm showing this picture because I want to underline the difference between Italy and other countries and countries such as Germany or Denmark or Austria or Sweden. And the approach to plants like this is completely different. And it is completely different because in those countries, the people fully rely in the control system. So they fully rely that the authorities will check the quality of the air emission, and so they can live close to the incinerators without having any problem. And I have to say that until now, I never read any reliable paper where health problems were correlated to plants which treat the waste in a proper way. Okay, so this is a typical example. This is a plant in Barcelona, another incineration plant in Barcelona. Again, we are talking about a plant which is in the middle of the city. And the last very famous incineration plant in Europe is this one. This one is the new incinerator in Copenhagen. Okay, and it is very nice. All these boxes that you can see here on the surface of the incinerator are made of aluminium, so it is very nice to see. And this is very incredible. It is the only place where you can ski in Denmark. You know that in Denmark they have not any mountain, any hill. They have the snow, but they have not the possibility to ski. And the only place in Denmark where they can ski is this one now. So every day, if you go to Copenhagen, you will see every day a lot of people going to the plant and staying all the day here. They have also restaurants here, so they go there and they enjoy the day without any problem. That said, I'm not for the incineration. I think that incineration is an old system. I think that incineration is a system which is not effective. I think that incineration is a system that, if it is not properly managed and it is not properly controlled, in particular, it is a dangerous system. So I really hope that we do not need anymore to build incinerators. But I have also to underline that the approach in other countries to this kind of problems is much more rational, I would say, than we can see in Italy. And this is, for instance, one of the most modern waste to energy plants in Italy, and it is close to the city of Brescia, and you can see that they can they use the heat which is recovered from waste combustion through a network of 670 kilometers. And you can see here all the data related to the possibility, or to the amount of energy which is recovered by this plant. And these are some data that I found in the website of Erambiente. Erambiente is the biggest municipal, no, I don't know in English, azienda municipalizzata. I don't know how to say in English. It's a private, are those public-private companies that not in Sardinia, because we never had them in Sardinia, but in the north of Italy, they manage all the services for the municipalities, not only waste management, but also wastewater treatment and public transport, energy distribution, etc. And you can see here that Erambiente manage the waste produced by a significant part of the north of Italy, Ferrara, Ravenna, Modena, Bologna, Padova, up to Trieste, and with 10 waste-to-energy plants, and the electricity which is recovered is injected into the national grid, and with an overall production of close to 1 million of kilowatt hour of electricity, which is the energy necessary to the needs of about 300,000 families. Okay, and the heat is piped into the homes, okay, and to the hospitals, and so they do not produce only electricity but also steam, steam which is used to heat a lot of houses. You can see here that the 2 million kilowatt hour of heat, which are equivalent to the average need of 14,000 houses. Okay, and I mean, I agree with this, that if we, for the same number of houses, we should burn more than 200,000 tons of oil. And all the problems that I mentioned, which are related, I'm late already. Right, Luigi, devo finire?
Beh, è iniziato un po' in ritardo.
Vado ancora un po' avanti. Vabbè, ditemi,
Adesso che parleresti 5 ore.
ditemi quando volete che mi fermi.
Quando sono morti, vediamo quanto resistono. Non so.
Anyway, this is...
L'importante è non fare le 3 ore di brainstorming successivo tra di noi sui progetti.
Quelle sono ovvie, certo che ci sono. Capito?
Ah, ok, ma le abbiamo già fatte.
Non è che scappiamo così, c'è il progetto da fare.
Vabbè, un'altra volta però.
Okay, I will go fast, I promise. So, I mean, just to say that all the problems that I underlined about incinerators, they can partly solve if we apply other technologies of thermal treatment of waste, such as gasification and pyrolysis, even if I have to say that the quality of the waste, which is very heterogeneous, is not so very well suited for the application of these technologies that theoretically will reduce most of the problems that we mentioned before. Now, just to close, I want to show this type of plant because I'm pretty sure that we are going towards a new age in waste management, and where all the packaging material, all the items will not be anymore considered as waste, but will be given back to the producers. Okay, so I'm sure that within 10, 15 years, we are not going to produce waste, but used items to give back to the producers and the sellers. And the only fraction that it will be not possible to give back is the food waste. Okay, we cannot give back a banana or the skin of a banana for a new banana. Okay, so it is impossible to reuse the food waste. And therefore, I think that in the next few, not in the next, but within 10 years, the only option for recovering the waste will be, again, what I mentioned for the landfill. So to exploit the capacity of some bacteria to degrade the organic matter and produce biogas. But instead of doing it in a landfill, which is a kind of reactor which is not easy to optimize it, to control, we are starting to do it in plant like this, which is close to the city of Trento. Okay, so this is the Brennero connection. Okay, and this is a very nice plant. It manages all the organic waste produced in the area of Trento, and from this about 30,000 tons of food waste, they are able to get a significant amount of biogas, which is used to produce electric energy and heat. Okay, and with the solid material which still is found after the anaerobic treatment, they are still able to produce composting. So to give you an example, in Cagliari, we produce compost with the food waste which is collected in Cagliari. In the near future, this food waste will be used like here, like in this kind of plant, to produce not only compost, as you can see here, but also biogas to be used for the production of electricity and heat. And to be honest, in Trento, they are already going forward, because you can see that they make an agreement with SNAM, and they are building a network. They are starting to refine the biogas. If you remember, I said before that it is 60% biomethane and 40% CO2. But if you refine the biogas, you will produce biomethane. Biomethane means that the gas is 98% methane, and this gas can be injected into the national net for methane, or can be used for the vehicles. And in Trento, they decided to use for the vehicles, because you can read here that they are building in cooperation with SNAM, a connection to bring the gas which is produced from the food waste to the recovery station of the bus which circulate in the city of Trento, that in the next years will be fueled only by methane. So they will be much more environmentally sustainable than the current bus fleet, which is fueled by diesel oil. Okay, so this is the future. And just to close, I want to tell you that we can modify this biological process in order to produce not only methane and CO2, but also hydrogen, that it may be the fuel of the future. And this is a research that we started 10 years ago in the University of Cagliari, and with significant result, and which made possible to receive an award from the United Nations in, if I remember well, in 2010, and to this the Sole 24 Ore, to be mentioned in many newspapers for this process that we studied here in Cagliari. Okay. Very last thing. In the near future, from the food waste, we will be able to get not only energy, but also biochemicals. Biochemicals which will be used according to the circular economy concepts for pharmaceutical needs, for cosmetics, etc. And therefore, in this way, we will be able to get high value products from food waste. It seems incredible, but it is possible. To give you an example again of what we are doing here in our department, we are now producing through biological processes bioplastics. So the same plastic that we use for the bags, the Mater B, that we use at home for the food waste, we are producing the same polymer from cheese whey. Cheese whey è il siero del latte in italiano. So it's a residue which is produced by during the production of cheese, and currently is an environmental problem, and we are treating this kind of organic residue not to produce energy. We produce energy as well, because we get also some hydrogen from the process, but most of all we are able to recover a material which is very smart and very precious and very expensive to be bought onto the market. Okay, so that's it. Sorry because I was very I said a lot of things, and it would be much better to have more time and to discuss more in detail some of the aspects that I tried to fit into the 1 hour. Okay, so thank you very much. Again, if you have any question, of course, I'm here.
Okay, your last sentence depends on your availability. As you know, it's very difficult to find your time, not my time.
No, but I'm here today, so if you want to do any question, I'm here today. I'm available.
Okay. Unfortunately,
it was a wonderful presentation.
But the topic is very interesting. Oh, gonna ask, what about composting bins in the nearest of the building for the food waste, like compost of the borough? Think about solution for the project. Oh, okay. The group, look the chat.
Look the chat. Where is the chat here?
Because of course they are thinking about the project that they have to working on.
Where is the chat? Okay, here is the chat. Okay, so food waste. What about composting bins nearest of the building for the food waste, like composter? Okay, yeah, you can do, but it depends on the type of building. I mean, you cannot do domestic composting in the middle of the city. So, I mean, if some parts of the city is a solution which may be applied. And again, the problem is that the municipality wants to know how much waste is managed through domestic composting. And so again, there is the problem to be able to measure how much food waste is treated by the family through domestic composting. But domestic composting is a good system. And we have also community composting. So not small composters, but bigger composters, which may be used for big buildings. But I mean, it depends on, on the characteristics of the buildings and the characteristics of the part of the city where you want to do self-compost. But self-compost is a good solution. Of course, you cannot recover the energy. With self-composting, you recover only compost. Compost is a poor product, and so it is useful also for your self needs. You cannot sell it.
Okay.
Oops.
I think we can stop the live streaming just to speak if somebody have some question more in detail about the project of the group.
Okay.
So just to close the Facebook live streaming.
They can have the idea to put